Okay, welcome folks to the May 26, 2020 Cohasset Board of Selectmen, and being broadcast to you again through the internet on Zoom and on Cohasset 143 TV. Tonight's meeting will be conducted on the Zoom platform and live streamed on Cohasset 143 TV and on Cohasset's Facebook page. And that's Cohasset live streaming. The public is also invited to participate in the Zoom platform, which can be accessed through the link provided at the top of the posted agenda for this meeting. The Zoom app can be loaded onto a smartphone, laptop, tablet, or other computer. Members of the board and other scheduled participants will be able to participate when called on by the chair. Board members will be able to ask questions of any participant. All votes taken at this meeting will be by roll call. Members of the public who wish to ask questions are asked to utilize the question and answer feature on Zoom, including typing in their name and address for the public record. So we have been having a lot more questions lately. Make sure that you do put in your name and your address, otherwise we probably won't be reading your question. The chair will review the questions and direct them to the appropriate participant for a response. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Cohasset 143 TV. So with those preliminaries, what I would like to do is invite those who wish to participate in our Pledge of Allegiance, and you can use the flag that's behind me to focus your allegiance to. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, I'll start the meeting off with a roll call for the attendance. Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy here.
Paul Schubert here.
Carrie Thompson here.
Jack Creighton here.
Kevin McCarthy here. Okay, the beginning of the first item on the agenda, as we have been doing weekly, and it's been much appreciated by the public because it's a great forum for the public to become informed as to what's going on in the town and with the government and in our response to the current COVID-19 emergency. So tonight, speaking to us and updating us will be Chief Robert Sylvia, Chief William Quigley, Emergency Management Director Glenn Pratt, and Health Agent Pam Fahey. We really welcome you all here tonight to give us the update. Now I'll begin by turning the microphone over to Chief Sylvia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pam Fahey will not be joining us tonight. She had another commitment. She's doing some research, so she'll be tied up for the evening, and she'll be back with us next week when we do our weekly presentation to the town. What we thought we would do is start out with just doing a review, because obviously what we've been dealing with for the last 2 weeks is the reopening of Massachusetts and the phase 1 reopening items that you voted on last week. And I thought we would just touch base on all of that stuff again. And then I think Glenn has some items that he wants to touch on. It's the same as Chief Quigley. So Chris, if you could, I sent you an email with a single slide on it, which was last week on the updates. I sent it 10 minutes ago. There we go. So what we wanted to talk about was obviously May 25th, yesterday, the items that came up online. We discussed this last week, but laboratories and life science facilities, which would include the CSCR. So we'll touch base on that in a minute. Obviously, offices at 25%. Car washes, which I do not believe they're up and running in Cohasset yet, but will be shortly. hair salons and barber shops for those that need those kind of things. Obviously, I don't worry too much about it. Pet grooming by appointment, curbside drop-off and pickup, and then really the thing that we wanted to focus on, which was the certain outdoor recreational facilities and activities. And Chris, if you could go to that other PowerPoint that I sent. Just give him a second here. I know the suspense is killing you all. Okay, so this is, what I've done is I took this entire document that was sent by Energy and Environmental Affairs, specific safety and reopening standards for the parks and open space and outdoor education programs. Last week, we kind of gave you the very brief 30,000-foot view. I think it would be helpful to the board and the community if we could drill down on this a little bit tonight. So if you go to the next slide, please, Chris. So again, guidelines, parks, open space, outdoor education programs for phase one. Really, they are property specific, and we'll kind of touch on a few of these things. And when I say property specific, excuse me, I'm talking about parks and or parks versus athletic fields versus athletic facilities like the tennis courts. So as we go through this, we'll kind of touch on all of them. Next slide, please. The big thing as far as all of this guidance, it all speaks to the same thing, and it speaks to social distancing and face masks or face coverings. So face coverings per the order, which is the governor's order that came out on May the 6th, I believe it was, that requires everybody, whether you're indoors or outdoors, to wear a face covering when you cannot maintain a 6-foot separation between yourself and others. The second piece of this is the fact that no groups larger than 10 are allowed to gather. So those are the two pieces that come out, and this is kind of universal across parks and recreation, athletic facilities, and the open spaces that we're out and about in. Okay, Chris, next slide, please. So walking, or parks and open space, obviously walking, biking, running, and the piece that we really didn't touch on last week, which was the yoga, tai chi, etc., are allowable activities in parks. So we'll touch on that on the next slide. This was brought to my attention by Pam today. So if you can go to the next slide, Chris. And again, really trying to hammer people about social distancing and the fact that you need to remain 6 feet away from others and follow the signs that are posted in all of these facilities. I mentioned the rest of this on the trails, and I really talk about things like the rail trail leaving the T station and going up into Wampatuck, that you need to try and do this as best you can to stay away from others. And that's why it says you should move aside and leave room for others to pass, to try and maintain that 6-foot distance. And if you can't, to make sure you're wearing a mask. Being a cyclist, I put the next one, I highlighted the next one, that cyclists and runners need to alert others that they're coming. You can't just sneak up on people and buzz by them in closer than a 6-foot area. So make sure that you alert them by calling out. Hopefully everybody seems to walk around with earbuds in, but that they'll hear you coming. And then plan your pass appropriately so as that you don't have to go out into traffic to get it done. It's one of the things that has been concerning us, is everybody's trying to do the right thing from social distancing standpoint, but in the meantime, they're putting themselves in harm's way as far as vehicle traffic goes. And then again, after visiting a public space, please wash your hands or use hand sanitizer. It's one of those things that, again, we're trying to train the public into. Okay, next slide, Chris. And this is really what they're trying to get to on the athletic fields and the athletic courts. No contact sports, no shared equipment, and no permits are issued for these type of things. So no organized games, no tournaments, no pickup games. And the shared equipment piece is really the biggest thing. The tennis and the pickleball type thing, and we'll get to that. shared equipment only amongst family members, people that you've been spending time with on a daily basis, not your friends and neighbors. Okay, next slide, please, Chris. Okay, and again, it really does come down to the same thing. Sanitize your hands, no shared equipment. Try to avoid you touching anybody else's equipment. And this is for athletic fields. So the big point here is to stay outside the field of play. And when we discussed this with the youth baseball and softball folks, the idea was it doesn't have to be just two people in an athletic complex like that. There could be a family playing catch in right field, one in center field, and one in left field, as long as they're distanced away from each other and that they don't share any equipment. And then again, no organized pickup games, organized games, or tournaments. The idea is during phase one that we remain in our social distancing mode. Okay, Chris? And for the athletic courts, same thing. Now we're talking really about the tennis courts per se. And no shared equipment. Make sure you wipe everything down and try not to touch other things. Now, if you arrive at the tennis court and all the courts are full at the present time, you're asked to wait outside until a court becomes available. Again, the biggest part of this is that we're trying to make sure that everybody remembers to social distance, or physical distance, as I like to say. Okay, Chris? Trash and disposal of public restrooms. Actually, Chris, I'm going to be kind of a pain here. I missed a couple of slides because I think I sent you a later version of this that had the slides that I was looking at from Pam. Could I be a pain and ask you to pull that one up instead?
And I'm gonna, give me a second.
No
My
problem.
IT skills.
That was my mistake. I'm trying to remember exactly what I sent, and Pam sent the slides to me a little later, so I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I'll get right back to this.
It's not a problem. In fact, while we're waiting, question maybe on the number of people for these events that can go and any kind of athletic thing. Is there a recommended number? We don't want to see exceeded. I mean, I think, is it 10 or
Everything
is it-
right now, yes, everything we're receiving, the guidance we're receiving is no groups of 10 or more.
Right. And also on our fields and so forth, because we've had some questions on that. Are we now going to have, is that now going to be posters and play, is there information being posted on these fields so that these rules can be known?
Glenn might want to speak to that. The DPW was working on that today. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the DPW, as they open the fields, they are posting rules and guidelines that were prepared by the Board of Health.
Actually, I would think that we really shouldn't open a field until that poster is up so that people going there know what the rules are. Does that sound fair to everybody?
Yes.
Correct.
It seems reasonable, yeah. So we had a couple, okay, so, and then people will know that, a field is open by virtue of the fact that the post is up. It'll say it's now open and here are the rules. I mean, I know we had a question of two or three on the weekend on this, and it wasn't clear. I don't think it's generally clear to the public or even to ourselves exactly when is a field open and so forth. So generally, I guess the rule that can be followed is that when you folks decide that the field's to be open, it'll be open and there'll be a poster so that there's direction, and that's some way that we can answer those questions. Is that fair?
Mr. Chairman, the goal for this week from all of us, including the DPW and everyone, was to just follow the guidance that we received from the board last week, that as of the 26th, we could start opening. So the signs were done over the weekend, and DPW, as they open, are supposed to be getting the signs up. And the way we did the signs, there's a couple of general signs that speak to, or a general sign that speaks to social distancing and to wearing a face mask, so our face coverings. And then additional phase one guidance that would be on a separate sign, so that when we reach phase two, and this slide, that's why I'm waiting for Chris to hopefully grab that other PowerPoint. I kind of wanted to touch on what phase 2 might look like. So Chris, if we could back up a few. I'm really stretching myself a little bit. Again, please. I think there's
I
one
think you're
more.
stretching Chris's skill. Yeah.
Okay, you can move forward, Chris. I'm not sure we're gonna hit the ones I'm looking for. There should have been one in here. Hold up. Can you go back one, please? Yeah, that's okay. What I'll just touch on is that what Pam talked about when she talked about the allowable activities, one of them was the Tai Chi and that type of thing. She wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that gyms or instructors can run these classes, like outdoor yoga or whatever, for groups of 10 or less in an area outdoors that is big enough that everybody can be properly socially distanced. And obviously, if you're going to be in an area where you're going to be breathing hard, the distance is not 6 feet, it's 12 feet. So if everybody can be properly social distanced and know that they still need to wear a mask, those were the two things that Pam wanted to make sure I mentioned on that. That those are allowable under phase 1. So if you see as an example, I drove by the Common yesterday and there were folks on the Common doing Tai Chi. So those things are an allowable thing under the phase 1 guidelines, but again, using the proper social distancing and use of masks. Chris, are you still trying to pull up the other one, or?
This is the other one, so I don't know what slides are we
I
looking
may have sent you the same one twice. It's very possible. We were working on it. So, so if you want to just pop that up, Chris, I'll just run through those other slides real quick on what the rest of that guidance was. And again, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. So it talked about parks, and obviously they talked about trash disposal. Obviously, as Sandy Beach becomes up and running, there will be some trash barrels down there, and I'm sure that Annette or Glenn will speak to that in a minute. But what we want to remind people is right now, everything is carry in, carry out. Please don't leave your waste behind, whether it be your trash or your dogs or whatever. Please take it with you, and we will get the cans up and running fairly shortly, especially down at the parking lot at the beach. Okay, Chris? So I put this in because obviously really there are public restrooms in a couple of places, possibly. And that might be at CSCR or whatever as we come online. But I just wanted everybody to have an expectation of exactly what is required under this guideline, that they be cleaned daily and at least daily, and then have a deep cleaning done once a week. But again, if you're going to be waiting in line for a bathroom, to remember that you need to maintain that 6-foot distance as you're waiting in line. And then obviously, wash your hands. That's understood. So, okay, Chris. I found this next one rather interesting, and this is something that I don't know that we've talked about yet, so I thought it was a good idea that we did. It was the idea of non-commercial dog walking and dog parks. Well, obviously, we don't have a dog park, but obviously, walking your dog is an allowable activity. But the next slide, I think you'll find interesting, if you would, Chris. You need to practice social distancing, but your dog needs to practice social distancing at the same time. No dogs of the same not of the same household should be together. So I found this very interesting. I'm sure that Dr. Schubert could speak to the science behind this, but I think as a novel virus, there's still some concern in regards to the transfer from humans to pets and back and forth. So, so the idea of your dogs are supposed to socially distance, I found that rather interesting, and I think it's the first time I've really seen this. And then obviously, don't share toys. And the big thing at the bottom, well, I should say fourth bullet point down, please carry out your own waste and dispose of it properly. Don't leave it for someone else to deal with. Okay, Chris. Again, there was something in here for community gardens, quick couple of slides, but I don't know if this does to pertain to Holly Hill or not, but we put it in there just so that everybody understands that there are guidelines for these kind of things. And again, the biggest piece is don't share equipment, don't share tools, and properly socially distance. And if you can't, make sure you're wearing a mask. It's the same mantra over and over again. And again, outdoor education programs, and again, I think the only one we're talking about is CSCR. And we can go to the next one, Chris. Again, the guideline is to manage, classes. If you have to have classes or anything, outdoors is best, but to make sure that people are separated properly and face coverings are required, and no shared equipment, tools, or materials. Okay, I think that's probably it, Chris. So before we move on to anything else, I'd entertain any questions you might have on what they've given us for parks, athletic facilities, and tennis courts.
Kevin, you're muted.
Is this another
Go
slide,
ahead,
Chief?
Carrie.
Yes,
Carrie
thank you,
Thompson.
Chief. Yeah, thank you, Chief, for that update. A question, because a few local gyms have been asking about it. If, let's say that, the local CrossFit gym wants to be able to host a class outside smaller than 10 people, do those people still have to wear masks?
According to the guidance that I received from Pam, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Okay, next question is Jack Creighton.
Yeah, hi, just
Go
a quick
ahead, Jack.
question. Facilities like the yacht club and the sailing club, they do have facilities, but they are inside. Are they going to be usable to members?
That's a question that is for each one of the individual operations, the same way that the bathroom, and you're talking about indoor facilities as far as the bathrooms, Jack, or?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the same thing as Sandy Beach. There is guidance from the state in regards to that type of a bathroom use, that it needs to be cleaned daily, that it needs to have a deep cleaning once a week, and that social distancing must be maintained. So there is actual specific guidance from the state in regards to how those would be used, but that is up to the individual organization. In essence, what we've asked is that they provide, and they've been doing it, and now it's not really required under the latest thing, but they've been giving Pam guidance in regards to what they're going to do to maintain or to play within the rules that are being put out by the state.
My understanding is both at this time are not going to allow that. I just wanted to make sure that it's their prerogative to do so if they feel they can. And there's no prohibition against either club or other similar clubs doing that. And I hear the answer is they can adhere to their own rules, as long as it's compliant.
Yeah, there is a guidance from the state in regards to that type of a bathroom and public bathroom use. As long as they maintain that, they can use them as they see fit.
Thank you.
I wonder, this is a lot of directions and a lot of regulations. Has there been any thought to, or is there any use to, I'm wondering about how to promulgate this to the public, I guess, is what my question is maybe putting this up in, if it could be 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 pages, or somehow on social media for one, I know we could, that would get around, or other ways of promulgating these rules. Any thoughts on that?
Though the state websites can be a little bit confusing, I would think that we could create some kind of a Q&A that would give people links to those specific sites in regards to, I would think, Mr. Chairman, something as Selectman Creighton just said, that if we if there was a question about a public bathroom, instead of us spelling the whole thing out, we would just give the basic answer and then put a link in that would bring them directly to the page, that would give them all the information they would need. Because there is, every one of these executive offices at the state is creating their own rules as they go along, whether it be, environmental affairs or whomever. So as it happened when we started shutting things down, it seems to be happening fast and furious. So we're trying to stay out in front of this as best we can, but I'd be more than happy to try and create some kind of a document that we could put out onto social media, and I would defer to Chief Quigley and to Chris on exactly how they want to do that. They're the guys, not me, but I'm sure we can make something happen.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Diane Kennedy?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I was on a call earlier today with some small businesses on the South Shore, and I don't know whether if we are doing an FAQ, maybe creating something that's business specific. To Carrie's point, a lot of businesses, and I'm sure, Pam, there's some businesses that Board of Health regulates, but just a landing spot for businesses that are trying to reopen and have all these questions, which technically, ultimately, the answers are somewhat the same as for the general public and field use, but I think everybody's trying really hard to be super compliant. It would be great to direct them to a place where they can get answers easily.
Thank you.
Again, I understand where they're coming from, Diane, because some of the stuff, it's difficult to find, but the state is slowly but surely drilling down on this, and there is one specific page that speaks to reopening. And
For
every
businesses?
one of the, so there is, it's a reopening web page, and then there are a bunch of click on the box to get the information specific to certain items, whether it might be a barber shop or a beach. You can get either one.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Any other? Paul Schubert. Paul
I
Schubert.
just want to reinforce the social distancing, but more importantly, to revisit what we've done at the hospital. And we've now gone through 4 weeks, and we have not had in 4 weeks any members of the staff be infected. Now we're all wearing masks. We're all social distancing. There's hand sanitizers everywhere, but the whole hospital is masked. And I can't underemphasize or emphasize enough the effects that the masks have for limiting transmission. Whether you're out jogging or you're outside or you're indoors, clearly it's more contagious indoors, and it's much more contagious and there's more people. Outdoors, it's less contagious, but it could very well still be contagious. So I would err on the side of wearing a mask, limit the contacts, distance yourself. In places like a public bathroom where it's limited air, limited circulation, and it's a small location, ventilate the room, wipe down everything when you're in there, wipe down everything when you leave, leave the door open, leave the window open. Some of these recommendations were at the yacht club to allow for use of the public bathroom while still making it as risk-free as possible. There's still going to be a risk, but we're trying to lower the risk enough that people, as we open up, are willing to go out and do things like go out and become customers and consumers and get the economy rolling again. We don't want to suddenly have another wave come in. So being very careful, wearing the mask, being limiting on the contacts is really how we're going to get the economy going again.
Thank you, Paul. Anything else for Chief Sylvia? If not, I'm going to go ahead and move over to Police Chief William Quigley. Chief Quigley, you have the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm not going to take a lot of your time up. Chief Sylvia pretty much said it all. But, the bottom line here is just, people have been very good, by the way, very compliant. They're trying their best. And these rules, they're not easy to understand. We have a call almost every morning to discuss the changes. And, you know, there's probably a couple hundred years of municipal service on those calls, and we chew over these regulations for a good hour. And, you know, sometimes at the end of the call, we still haven't figured it out. So we're just, you know, hoping and expecting that people use good common sense. And we're trying to get out as much information as we can. You know, and that goes to what Kevin was talking about. You know, posting things at you know, different sites and fields. We don't want to we don't want to make anything too permanent, because sometimes these things change not only by the day, but sometimes twice a day. What was bad today is good tomorrow, and what's, you know, good tomorrow is bad the next day. So it's this is definitely a moving target. Again, we just ask that people use common sense, and thank you for your support, everybody. And if there's any questions, I'll take them.
Are there any questions? Diane Kennedy, 1 second.
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. The ugly enforcement question. I know over the weekend, well, in particular Friday, because it was such a beautiful day, there were a lot of cars at Black Rock Beach. Almost none of them had Cohasset stickers. Almost all of them had parking tickets issued by Cohasset Police. And I had a friend who kind of interacted with somebody who said, I've been here all day, I don't care, I'll take the ticket, and you know, because it's cheap. So I definitely think we need to talk about, especially through this summer when people are you know, staying at home and things have not returned to some kind of normal, whether we, you know, whether we institute towing, whether we institute higher fines. I think that's something the board needs to talk about, because I had at least 2 different Cohasset residents call me like in tears because they had been trying to get a parking space all day. And, you know, we're basically said, who cares? Too bad, you know. And to your credit, everybody had tickets that were out of towners. So.
Yeah, we have the summer special officers started early this year, a couple months early. That's something that, you know, Chris and I have been talking about, and I think it's something you'll probably see in a future agenda. We have some, you know, pretty interesting ideas on how to address that situation, whether it's, you know, upping the fines or stacking tickets or towing. But it's ultimately up to the board. It's a regulation that the board can change at one of their meetings.
Great, thank you.
Thank you,
Chris.
Just
to follow up on that, so as the Public Works Department is also studying that additional parking that we had talked about, so they're in the process of looking at creating that additional parking. So that is an ongoing conversation.
Is that, Chris, the space that we talked about is that the space of parking lots that we've sort of discovered?
Yeah, the land that the town owned that we can actually create.
Yeah, so we are going to go ahead, because we did want you as a board.
Yeah, it is.
To
It's being
pursue
pursued.
that.
Yeah, and we'll come back with a plan before we do anything.
That is town property, and that's owned by the town, and that'll represent a number of other spaces. So the gist of the board is that you pursue that, you know, which obviously you are. We don't want to, you know, lose the rights to that property at all anymore. Carrie wanted to get in, but Diane is on. You want to get in on
Yeah,
this
if I could just follow up on that. I mean, just in terms of, and as you know, Chris, for forever, I've been an advocate for additional parking down at Black Rock Beach. However, the beach is very small and it's not, so when you have there's, I think, 8 or 9 parking spaces there. If you have 8 or 9 cars, the beach is going to look pretty full. And there's also a lot of people that walk. So it's just something that we need to balance. If we open up more parking spaces, we may be shooting ourselves in the foot in terms of managing social distancing.
Okay. Carrie, you wanted to get in.
Yeah, to echo that, I know people were starting to park on the grass across from the parking spots on Friday, and I do think we have room for a few more spaces. I think that's okay. I know that we have Sandy coming up next on the agenda, but I did want to ask about the beach hours again. I know a lot of people are asking us if we are going to extend them past 6 p.m. I think it's maybe something we need to consider based on having longer hours might allow people to spread out the time more. And I will just say, as someone who is very fair-skinned and burns easily, I'm one of the people that usually goes to the beach later just based on sun and being more protected in the evening. So that is something that I know a lot of us are concerned about. Wanted to know what you all thought about it.
That's something we've been talking. We talked about this morning, and we're trying to come up with a workable plan that works for Sandy Beach. It also works for the town, but it's definitely on the horizon. It's being queued up. Again, we were talking about this morning. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a more of a conversation about it when Annette gets on about Sandy Beach.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Jack Creighton.
Yeah. The potential solution, and I would defer to Chief Quigley, if you go back 2 hours later and the car is there 2 hours later, check their license plate. If they're not from Cohasset, tow them. The following weekend, I'll bet you there'd be very few people from out of state or out of town parking there. Now, there may be logistic things. It's just an idea, and I think Chief Quigley was the guy who understand how best that might work. It's called passing the ball.
There's a lot of different options on the table, and we're in some pretty deep discussion about that. But that's definitely an option if that's a route the board wants to go. That's well within your rights to enact that type of regulation. There's also ticket stacking. You can get a ticket every hour. There's all kinds of interesting approaches. Just as a side note, we issued a ton of tickets down at the beach last week. This week was much less. They're controlling the gate better, the Sandy Beach Association. They actually have a person on the gate, so that's weeding a lot of people out before they take up those valuable spots. So it's a work in progress, and we're trying to be very balanced in what we do.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions of the chief? Okay, not seeing any. What we'll do is now go to the Emergency Management Director, Glenn Pratt. Glenn, you have the microphone.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an update from emergency management. On a bright side, as we start to re-enter the phase called recovery, the supply chain for PPE seems to have opened up. On Friday, we received 2 back orders on items we had placed on the 15th of March. So that's a good sign. And we continue to build our inventory. So that's a bright spot. We've been working on starting to see how we will get the town buildings open. There's an employee committee that's involved with input on facilities. DPW is heavily involved. So we meet and make progress on that every week. But as we try to get the buildings reopened on the municipal side, the school side is trying to get their buildings closed. They have hundreds, probably thousands of packages laid out in the gymnasiums, and they have a schedule set up over the next week or so where parents and students can come and get their personal belongings that have been left in the lockers and in their desks. So that's quite a challenge for them, as is the challenge of getting back the thousands of items, textbooks and electronic devices the town owns. So we're trying to get open, they're trying to get closed, but I think they have a good plan, and that's progressing along. The other thing that you've all hear about, and we continue to talk and work on every day, is the setup and the logistics for the annual town meeting, which is going to be a successful event, but it's got a lot of ideas that change every day, and we're all working on that successfully. And the other thing that we talk about, as Chief Quigley said, every day, sometimes more than once a day, is what's the situation and what is the right thing to do with the town parking lot and the Sandy Beach property. So we've been having great conversations with the Beach Association. They have a lot of forward-looking ideas. I think everybody realizes that what's been status quo there for over 100 years is got to have some changes. And I think you'll be pleased with some of the ideas that Annette will probably talk about when she comes up just after us. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Unless you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Glenn, did you manage to get secure gowns from PPE? Have you?
Gowns,
Yeah,
gowns is our weak spot. We can't seem to get ourselves over 200 in stock. And it's such an unknown on the burn rate on those. It's been very difficult.
yeah. I mean, that's been a real problem at the hospital. We run very, very low inventories, and it's a bit, well, a little disconcerting. We tend to replace, we reuse the masks, which we've gotten used to, but the gowns have been a shortage. I think if you can track any of them down, I wouldn't say hoard them, but keep them in inventory.
Yeah, the other thing that the employees have been great on is everyone's onto a rhythm and a system on sanitizing their KN95 masks. So we've got a manageable use rate, and so it's working well. But the gowns are the problem.
Yeah.
There's apparently, you probably know, there's a Massachusetts company that's been converted that is making these gowns. You may be familiar with, I can't remember the name of them, but they were on television and they were with the governor a week or so ago. But I'm sure you're sourcing everywhere you can, but there is a company right in Fall River that's been converted to making those exclusively.
Right, and MEMA circulated all that information to town emergency management directors, also with contact names within the company, so we actually can talk to somebody. So hopefully that'll come to some success.
I was listening to the governor's conference, as I know you all probably do too today, and also just watching the news and so forth. And they spent pretty much the whole thing on food security, and it's an issue that we're not used to even having an issue either in this country and for sure in Cohasset. But it seems to me that that's a potentially probably more problematic than we even know now. But apparently from the statistics and the data they were talking about, they're really having to beef up on the state level the production of meals and the supplying of food to populations all throughout the Commonwealth. I suspect, again, from what I've been hearing, what I heard in that conference, as well as I hear in the news, has the potential to become a very serious problem, and increasingly so into the summer and the fall. One of those things that could hit us by surprise, again. So I think we should have that on our radar. We should be thinking about that, but are we? And thinking about how we can make sure that there's a good, ample, believe it or not, ample supply of food for the citizens of Cohasset, for the long run here.
Well, we haven't specifically talked about that as an agenda item. I'm sure it'll come up now that it's been made public at the state level. But on the local level, the school department has worked out with Nancy LaFosse at the senior center an arrangement whereby their food service will be available to the seniors all summer. So that segment of our population is taken care of. And they have not unlimited, but they have a huge capacity to help those people that the senior center determines need help.
The programs that are coming out that the state is doing, there's quite a lot of them. They're really setting up on this to be able to help any community. So I do think that if you could put this on your daily agenda somewhere, or think about this, but definitely we should all be on the lookout for, if this starts to occur, in Cohasset, that we can be reactive to it and we can be supportive of people. It's one of those under the rug problems that, once it manifests itself in an out of control fashion, then it can be really unpleasant. So I would hope that we do that, and we'd set up some kind of a vigilance on that too at the town level.
We'll get that on our agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Anything else for any of the speakers? If not, again, I want to thank you all. The chiefs, the fire chiefs, police chief, and everything you folks are doing, and all of your professional people that we see very visibly. Our first responders are out there, and they really do seem, knock on wood, to be quite on the ball. They're around town quite a bit, and they're on top of things. If you can just see that, and the fire police, you always they're completely masked every time you see them. Anyways, thank you very much for all of you, the work that you're doing and your entire organizations. Again, this is a marathon, so we're all in this together, but thank you, okay? With that, we're gonna end this portion and then go over to the next portion, which is the discussion relative to the Sandy Beach. With that, Chris, I don't know who we have on that or whatever.
So we can keep some of our panel, and I know we have Annette, and there's Annette Sawchuk who's popped up. And do you have others that are joining you tonight, Annette?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Do
you.
you have anyone else joining you tonight from your?
No, it's just myself.
Okay.
But thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the board for inviting me for this update for the beach. We have started to a little bit of a soft opening. We do not have guards on the beach yet. Our official day for opening is going to be June 16th. I'm sorry, June 13th. That's usually the day that we have lifeguards on the sand. Our beach maintenance workers, they usually start a few days early, get the beach house ready, get the beach cleaned up. Our beach cleaning is going to start on June 8th. So it will be done before June 13th for the opening day. We have been collecting some statistics from last weekend. We had a gate guard on all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And he was taking information, how many cars were coming in the parking lot, how many were non-resident cars, how many people were in the car, and how many people were on the beach at not really one time, but from the time they came in until the time they left. So we are continuing to collect that data just so we can try to do a little bit of planning for beach space. When it's a low tide, I think the parking lot can be full and the beach can be socially distanced for the right amount. But we don't know about high tide yet. We're still working on that. We're going to have to do some changes, figuring out how many people are coming during the week, not during the week, on the weekends. We can close the gate at a certain point if the beach gets too crowded. I'm not sure how that will go over with some of the people coming to the beach, but that'll be something that we'll work out. We have limited the days of the week that the non-residents can come. Right now, it is Monday through Thursday. And we may open that if we find out that the beach is not as crowded. We aren't finding a full parking lot. We will probably open that up to maybe another day during the week. But right now, we have limited it to 4 days a week for our non-residents. Right now we are 9 to 6 for our beach hours, when the parking lot actually has been opening at 6. Our gate guard gets there at 9. Police have been great Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, ticketing cars. People, if they get in before our gate guard gets there, then we don't have control over that, but the police have been ticketing. We will, as time goes on, and after we are open full time and we have guards on the sand and we have a full staff, we will start extending our hours. We will have a gate guard there earlier. We will extend the hours probably, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock. And then the gate will close at 8 o'clock, because we also have the issue of when beachgoers are leaving the parking lot, sometimes we get the teenagers coming in. So if we can lock the gate at 8 o'clock, that would help in both directions. The trash pickup will be the same as it was last year. The trash barrels will rolled out on the beach by opening day. Last weekend we had a take your own trash home. We gave out a trash bag when people came in the parking lot, and it actually worked out very, very well. We don't have any trash cans on the beach right now. If we have a trash can on the beach and the trash can gets full, people just leave the trash next to the trash can. So So it actually, we think it worked out very well all winter, not having the trash cans there. I think Carl had less people leaving couches and mattresses and household trash because there was no place to put it. But with the opening of the beach, we're going to start with a snack bar. We will start for just a limited amount of offerings, probably just drinks, prepackaged ice cream, prepackaged snacks. As time goes on, we see how that works out. We don't, like everybody else, we don't know what the state's going to do. So phase one is phase one, but phase two may not happen the way they think phase two is going to happen. So we have to just kind of go by what the state is saying, and what we can't just jump in and say, we're going to do this, and then we have to backtrack. I feel like you offer a little bit, and if you can extend it, it's great. If you offer it all at once and you have to pull it back, I think that's when we get into trouble. So the snack bar will be open with limited food. The restrooms, we've gone back and forth about that. I think we're going to try and open them and see how it goes. The cleaning once a day and the deep cleaning once a week has made us a little more comfortable opening it. There were a lot of rumors flying around that you had to clean the bathrooms every time somebody used it, and that was going to be something that we would not be able to do that. So right now we are planning to open the bathrooms on the 13th. We did this year, I'm sure you've heard, started a no dog policy for the beach. We have allowed it in the past from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And we decided that we get so many complaints about the trash poop on the beach, the dog poop on the beach, and people will either not pick it up, or they pick it up and then they leave the bag on the beach, on the rocks. They don't take it home. And I think the evening is a little bit worse than in the mornings. I think for some reason in the morning people tend to pick up a little better, but you also have dogs peeing on the beach, and you have people bringing their babies and they're sitting in the sand, and it's just not a good, I don't think it's a healthy situation. So that's where we are with the dogs. I think I covered pretty much everything until you have questions.
Thank you very much, Annette. That was a very thorough report for us. Much appreciated. Paul Schubert has a question.
Yeah, so a couple of things with the bathrooms. If you look at some of the Nordic countries have opened up already, and in particularly Denmark has opened up for their kids. I think it's K through 8, and their bathroom policy is basically one child in the bathroom at a time. They would all wash their hands typically every 30 minutes, which you get the kids to do that. But more importantly, in the bathroom, they wipe it down every hour. Now that's a lot, but we've got people that if they're going to go in, if there's like a hand sanitizer there, they can pretty much just touch contact, wipe everything down. So if there's just a simple instruction panel in the, as you enter the men's room or the ladies' room, you'll say, you'll need to wipe everything down, leave the windows open, which it's already done for aeration and for ventilation. They had, in Denmark, they had very low incidence of transmission in that situation. So the touch contact and the one person per bathroom at a time seems to be a pretty reasonable way to lower the risk. You're not going to end the risk altogether, but it's one way to limit the risk of exposure.
Right.
Thank you very much, Paul. Annette, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that. Our biggest challenge with wiping it down every hour is we don't have the staff for that. So we have lifeguards on the beach, the lifeguard, we have our beach maintenance workers that come in the morning, which was one of the reasons why we were considering not opening the bathrooms, because we don't have the staff to stand outside the bathroom doors all day. Our bathrooms, unfortunately, do not have windows, but the doors stay open all the time, because you open the door and then everything is is enclosed when you get in. The stalls are enclosed, and so you can't. So, but that's what, in the past, the doors to both the men's room and the ladies' room stay open.
Yeah, but I mean, just you can have the people who go in there just with a hand sanitizer, just wipe everything they touch.
So have the public do it.
Exactly, yeah. You've got people that are not kids that you kind of have to go in and do it for them. You've got adults that say, look, just wipe everything down, and anything you touch, you clean, you wipe, you leave, and leave it, cleaner than you entered. And that'll work.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else? Carrie Thompson?
Thank you for that update, Annette. Just a broader discussion that I don't know if we want to have tonight with everything going on, but do we need to really think about maybe reassessing the beach stickers, the prices, thinking about, I know that people from other towns are very upset, Annette, with the new weekday hours for them, and I know you're trying your best to please everyone, make it as safe as possible, but is there anything we can be doing, I guess, as, a town governing body to help the association with future decisions about how to run this? Is there any way you think we can be doing it better in terms of stickers, in terms of prices, just how to help you remain safe and financially healthy as an association?
Well, Cohasset used to do, it was a separate transfer station sticker and a separate beach sticker.
Right, and a lot of towns do that still. So yeah, I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah, and Cohasset has combined it. One of the statistics that we found out over the weekend was that our non-residents, and the non-residents are allowed to access the beach until June 1st, 7 days a week. And one of the things that we found out with our statistics is the number of non-resident cars was very low. And in comparison to the Cohasset residents, but just overall a low number for the parking lot. So I'm not sure that the non-residents are what's creating a full parking lot. I think what's creating a full parking lot is you get a weekend day, it's 90 degrees, everybody's coming to the beach. Cohasset now, there's an increase in the population. You've got Avalon, you've got several other developments that are new in town. So I'm not quite sure that the non-resident memberships are what is taking up an inordinate amount of spaces from Cohasset residents. We're still gathering that information. We have the gate guard has a clipboard, and every car that comes in, and they get checked off for whatever box they belong in. And so we'll know better from that point. But right now, based on, well, that was only on really Friday, because that was only the best day. Last summer, we only had 3 days where the parking lot was full. And sometimes people say the parking lot's full. The parking lot's full because they can't park where they want to park. The parking lot's not full if you want to park on the Atlantic Avenue side of the parking lot and you have to walk a little bit farther. So sometimes when people say, oh, the parking lot's full, it's really not full. It's just full for their use. But going forward, we'll have more information about how the parking is going with residents versus non-residents.
And actually probably, go ahead, Carrie, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. That information is really helpful. So keep continuing to update us on it to see if there's anything we can be doing better as a town as a whole.
Okay.
And that it may be repetitive, but just so I asked the question, Ron Norton of Mohawk Way had a question on this subject, which was why are non-residents being allowed to park at Sandy Beach without a facility sticker? Non-residents should not be allowed during this pandemic in the first place. So that's from Mr. Norton on Mohawk Way. So whether you want to comment on that or you already have, so to speak.
So
I guess he's concerned about non-residents.
They don't think that the non-residents should be able to park.
Mr. Norton is pointing out that non-residents are being allowed to park at Sandy Beach without a facility sticker. and that non-residents shouldn't, in his view, is non-residents should not be allowed during the pandemic in the first place. And that's from Mr. Norton on Mohawk Way.
You said without a sticker?
Yes, that's what he
Well,
said.
If they don't have a sticker, then the police chief, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chief Quigley.
I think he's just making that as, he's pointing it out apparently. Is Chief Quigley want to address that?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think the person asking the question isn't clear. The association sells, I believe, tickets to sells stickers for beach parking to non-residents. There's a certain number that they're allowed to sell, so people can opt, they can buy in from out of town to Sandy Beach. So I think that's what the question was. So if they have a sticker, they do have a sticker. It's not an all facilities sticker, but it's a sticker to park at Sandy Beach to use that beach as a non-resident.
Okay.
Right. The non-residents were, beach memberships were started back in the 1920s. We do not get enough money in donations from Cohasset residents to be able to run the beach. With minimum wage at $12.50 an hour, our beach maintenance workers get $12.50 an hour because that's minimum wage. If we're paying a beach maintenance worker $12.50 an hour, we can't pay a lifeguard $12.50 an hour. It's just not, you just can't do that. There's a difference between picking up trash on the beach and saving somebody's life if you have to. And then there's insurance and there's cleaning the beach. People don't understand that when we clean the beach at the beginning of the season with all that equipment on the beach, it's very expensive. And then when we have a storm, like we had this past week, and you get all the seaweed on the beach, the first complaint that we get is, when are you going to clean the beach? So we go down with all the heavy equipment again, and that's another big amount of money. So without the non-residents selling non-resident memberships, Sandy Beach, you can't, it just doesn't work until we start getting more money from donations from the town.
Okay, Mr. Norton said thank you. His question was answered. Jack Creighton would like to ask a question.
Yeah, just a comment. I echo with what Carrie had to say. I think it's time to revisit the whole situation. And Mr. Norton's question and that's answer, I think neatly illustrates the problem. We have a situation in which the beach is privately maintained. The parking lot is publicly owned. There's not enough revenue to really manage the beach. And there are a variety of other things. What strikes me is there are very good people with good intentions on both sides of 3 or 4 sides of this issue. So I think it's probably time that the Board of Selectmen, in conjunction with the rest of the town, start putting together a policy that reflects the financial needs of the beach association, reflects the needs of the residents. We want to use our beach. And I just think, Mr. Chairman, that perhaps we should move forward in some kind of forum to, resolve this.
Well, maybe, Chris, have we put on this as an agenda item for probably in July? I don't know whether we have or not, but maybe if we could make a note for you to review this with, to be on the agenda, I'd say the second week of July. I think Tracy's probably listening already. So if you could make that note, Tracy, and then Chris can take that up and maybe get this on an agenda item, because it is very important. Very important. This beach is very core to the community. So yes, we will. Okay, any other questions? Annette, you've been very helpful, very thorough. Very much appreciate you being here with us this evening.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Very, very quickly, I just sent Chris a quick note. While we had this opportunity, and I promise I won't kill you with PowerPoint again, but there were 3 slides I just wanted to touch on, because I think we need to bring the expectations of the public, what the guidance from the state is in regards to beaches. And I'm not just talking about Sandy Beach. I'm talking about Black Rock Beach. I'm talking about Bassins Beach, the beach situation altogether. And there's just 3 slides that I wanted to touch on. I think it starts with slide 3, 4, and 5, Chris, on that that PowerPoint I sent you. So number 1, again, and there's been a lot of conversation about this, and face coverings and masks on beaches. Again, if you cannot maintain a 6-foot social distance, you are required to wear a mask. And again, obviously, if you're in the water, you're not required to wear the mask while you're swimming. But that being said, if you're going to be on the beach and you cannot socially distance, or you're going to go to use the restroom or the snack bar or whatever the case may be, you should be wearing a mask. Okay, that was point 1. Chris, if you would. Again, point 2, no groups larger than 10. And again, I know that everybody's at this point where, the fatigue is set in. If you're going to go to the beach and you're going to sit in a group, and you can socially distance, please, no groups larger than 10. It just gets out of control at that point. And then the last slide, Chris. Okay. So this is the one I wanted to mention, and this is when Annette mentioned the fact about how many people can actually fit on the beach. The idea is that everybody has to have their own space, and adequate social distancing between groups of people needs to be 12 feet so people can walk past them. So if you have 2 groups that are only 6 feet apart, there's no walking space. So that's where it comes down to the 12-foot piece. And when you ask about the parking lot, the only way you're going to be able to manage the beach as far as all the beaches is with the parking piece, but Sandy Beach especially, because as she said, at high tide, it's going to be a little bit of a nightmare. But the 2 biggest pieces there are, this isn't just about Sandy Beach. It also includes Black Rock Beach, and more importantly, at some point, Bassins Beach, that everybody needs to understand that social distancing rules are in effect on the beach during phase 1, 6 feet away from each other and 12 feet between groups. That's what I had on that, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking the time for that.
Thank you very much. Okay, anything else on this topic? If not, again, I want to thank you, Annette, for being here. Very thorough presentation and very helpful discussion. And again, I'll say, as I did on the last, that this is all such good and useful information that we need to think about, promulgating this properly to the public, either in brief things on social media or somewhere, just so. And I think there's so much to hear that maybe, we need to think about a strategy of, and some people are very good at communicating these things on social media, but, just one page type things or one mem or something that gets some of these major points across. So I would repeat that relative to this beach issue as well. Okay. Yes, Annette.
One of the things that will be going out soon is our annual appeal letter, and that will have a lot of information in it about what we're doing and what hours are and what's happening, and that goes to every household in the town.
Good. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Annette.
much, and very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
What we're going to do now is go to the next topic, which is support letters for Seaport Economic Council. And Chris, if you could, I know we've been back and forth on this. Hopefully, we've sort of got this. And could you get Durensis up here too, if we could put him on here, because he had some comments on that letter. But hopefully, what we have is if you could put up, what we're talking about.
He was just here. Did he? Oh, there he is. He fell off again.
No, I'll see if I can.
I got him. There he
I
is.
can use mine. I assume what you'll do is whoever's presenting this can put the letter up to the board, and then we can decide what to do on that. Okay.
Yeah. So the next round, the Seaport Economic Council has 2 rounds of grants. One is the deadline is next week, and the next one is in the fall. So sometimes there's 3. This cycle there's 2, and the primary grant that we're going to be seeking is to help pay for the repairs to the boat ramp. and the engineering firm that's been retained to do that engineering is also working out the grant application. The fact that the boat ramp is in the harbor plan, that it's part of the long range goals, the fact that the harbor plan itself was funded by a Improved Economic Council grant is all really critical for this whole application. That said, it's never harmful to have a letter from the board, though this is for some reason sitting on my letterhead, and I will show it to the board. And we have Tim Davis up if Tim has any other comments from the Harbor Committee. The second application is going to be to assist with the ongoing work of trying to get a lift system. We have to do a further analysis of the dock and town dock, and also some permitting we'll have to get done. So we're going to be putting in a grant for that too for the Reciprocal Economic Council. And if I can show this in just a second. This is the very simple draft letter that was put together, and I believe that Michelle Leary, who's actually managing this process, and Paul Laurentius went back and forth this morning, so I believe that this is the current version of this. Bigger.
Thanks for zooming that in.
It's about as big as I can make it.
Chris, do you need a motion on this, or is this from the board?
Yeah, if you're going to have a letter from the board, again, this actually has room for everybody's signature. It would be good if you're going to have a letter from the board, which again, it's never bad. It's to show unity of support application. And again, this is in the capital plan. It's in the harbor plan. This is a project that's, I think it's actually number one right now in the list. So does anyone have any questions about the letter? I'll take it down. And then you can see whoever has any questions, Kevin. And
Okay, any questions on that? I think the idea is, if you all read it, you had it in your package as well. This was a sort of an improved version based on some input from our council and so forth. Council Laurentius, you don't have any further comment on this, I presume? This letter would be acceptable to go? That means okay, all right. Looks like he's a baseball umpire. Okay,
he gave you the papal blessing.
With that, it would look like we could vote to go ahead. Wait, Jack Creighton has a question. Jack,
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make the motion unless somebody else has further discussion. If there is no further discussion, I move that we adopt and send the Seaport letter for the Parker Avenue grant, and I don't know, I'll look to Paul Schubert to figure out the correct wording.
Yeah, it would be a motion to support the proposed letter to the Seaport Economic Council in support of the boat ramp.
So moved.
Okay, that's the motion. And do you want a second? Why don't you second it, Jack?
No,
Paul just made the motion.
All right, then I'll second it.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Diane?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul, you're muted.
Oh, Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. Okay, so, and that needs to be signed. So I would suggest that we have to also sign the warrant. Chris, you're probably thinking the same thing I am. So when we go to sign, we all have to sign the warrant the next day or two. That letter will be in it. So you'll sign this letter and you'll sign the warrant, okay?
Very good.
Wait, and before we leave this subject, because it's helpful with the harbor plan, and also, as was mentioned, when are we seeing we're ready to move forward on this harbor plan and have been ready for a little while now. So
I think we're teed up. I think for the 23rd, Kevin, if I'm not.
Yeah, I believe so. So we're still on schedule for that.
Yeah, because the planning board has given their green light, and the harbor committee gave their green light. So I think
So what that'll be, board, is that'll be a hearing. We'll do the hearing the same night. That'll be a hearing, and we'll review the harbor plan and make our decision on that. But that'll coming up on the 23rd, and it'd be nice to get that done because it makes all these improvements so much easier for the harbor committee to do. So, okay. Nothing else left on that one. I'm going to switch over to the letter of support for the naming of Rum Runner Rock near Brush Island. This is one of the more compelling events of this year. So, actually, this rock has quite a history. So I hope someone's going to give a brief outline of it. And then there was a very good picture of this of Brush Island on Facebook that somebody put up from 1907, and I didn't realize that it had maybe someone's going to talk on this. So I don't want to steal any thunder, but it was quite attractive, and there's a big building there, and there's a history there. But Chris, whoever's dealing with this, go ahead. And
there
see
she is.
Ruth.
I think Miss Knapp is here.
Miss Knapp, welcome, Ruthie.
Yes,
Sorry I
Ruthie
started
here?
talking.
Yes, here.
Yeah, all right, Ruthie.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
if you
Yeah, excuse me.
would make your presentation, Ruthie, go ahead.
Thank you so much for squeezing me in. You've got a lot of very important things on your docket.
You're most welcome.
I've come to feel that this little cut through between Brush Island and No Name Rock is really, I think, a dangerous passageway, and a lot of people use it to avoid going around Brush Island. And it got me thinking that if we named it, it might bring some attention to the fact that it's there, and at high tide, you often can barely see the crest. And with climate warming, oceans climbing, higher tides, I really think it is a potential threat to people who are on the water. I've hit it a couple of times, and I know other people have as well. But in a way, what's equally important, I think, is to give people a sense in Cohasset of their history. And I know they know it, and you've done such great jobs with John Smith and all that, but I feel if we named it Rum Runner Rock, that's a very colorful period in Cohasset history. And I think it's fun to spotlight things like that. We don't have that many rocks that aren't really boring and dull, like Round Rock, Barrel Rock, West Shag. I don't know, I just think that the two things work well together. So that's my limited presentation.
Very good.
I'm
Does
sold.
Diana's sold. Anybody have any more? Because there is some history on this if someone wants to give it.
Paul Schubert has some history too.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't. I hope it's not personal, but go ahead. Carrie first, then Paul. Go ahead, Carrie.
No, I love it. I think it's catchy. I think it's creative. I love the history to it. And I think in terms of branding for this rock, it might also help with safety issues. So thank you all for your work on this. I think it's great.
Well, actually, maybe we could get, Bacardi to put a name and we could get some revenue for the town.
Naming rights.
All right, Paul Schubert.
We can offer naming rights.
Paul Schubert.
So my grandfather was a New York City policeman on the other side of the law, and basically ran after the rum runners on the waterfront in New York City during Prohibition. So I'm in favor of it. It's a bit of history that the town has that kind of, you can look at it from both sides.
I think so. Anybody want to give that brief history, Mr. Davis? Tim Davis, please. 1 second, I'll put you on here.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Am I muted?
No, you're unmuted.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Thank you, board, for taking this up, and Ruthie, thank you for pressing this. The rock, as you may know, is right off of our house here. And in 1930, the rum runners came in by Brush Island and landed on this property where I now am. It was the McElwain property, and they collected what would today be probably close to $50,000 worth of illicit rum as it came into McElwain, what was called the McElwain Beach at that time. I really do think that was the beginning of the history of the rum that I have stashed down below, and you're all welcome to come and enjoy it sometime. The other thing I can tell you, Ruthie is absolutely right that this rock is hard to see, particularly at higher tides. There are two sailors in Cohasset, two types of sailors in Cohasset. One that admit they hit rocks, and then there are the others. I can confess I have hit Rum Runner Rock at least once while I've been here. So thank you for considering this, and this will be a great addition to Cohasset lore.
Yes.
I might point out that I have never had a problem finding this rock.
You're a fair weather sailor.
I think we had a
No,
picture.
Ruthie, I mean, I have never had a problem finding it. I find it quite often.
You want to put that
Right,
picture
yeah.
back up?
The roundabout way of, just there's the picture of it right there.
Mm.
Wow.
That's from Sandy Beach, that shot?
No, that's from Ruthie's deck.
Okay. Okay.
That's Brush Island to the left.
Okay, any rum found on there is town property, okay, Ms. Knapp?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, anything else on? Go ahead.
Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I wasn't expecting really to get it, so, but I think you won't be sorry, for sure. So yes, as soon as we get our house re-electrified, everybody come over. We'll have a little
Rum party.
Okay, that's not a bad idea. Miss Carrie, and then Paul Durensis.
Yes,
Carrie?
Ruthie. Yes, thank you for the party invite. Is there any way we can help announce this PR-wise to the town with some clever social media posts, marketing? How do you want to roll this out, and how can we help you with that?
Well, let's do a ribbon cutting and we'll all get out to the party.
We still have to get it approved. I mean, it's hopefully by June 1st, if it gets to the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, they will approve it. But I think we have to wait till we have something official. And I'll think
I
about
suggest we have something for the 4th of July, and I have something in mind, Ruthie, that I will collaborate with you on.
Oh, ooh, sounds good.
That sounds fun.
I
Less
can bring,
than 10 and socially distant.
It includes socially distancing, absolutely. And it includes rum.
I figured as much.
okay. Did anybody else have any commentary on this? Okay, if they didn't, then Chris, I would think we need to make sure we do this motion properly so we get the right name. I don't know, or just, who wants to make a motion just to make sure? Is it pretty clear
I
from the
can
agenda?
try.
Yeah, I think it's, let me just make sure I have the application form up here. You're supporting, this is a motion to support the naming of Rum Runner Rock by the U.S. Board on Geographic Names.
Right, that's correct.
And that is as designated on the application. Is that okay? All right. Someone want to make that the motion? Just say that.
I'll move that we support the letter naming it Rum Runner Rock. The letter is going to say it one more time, Chris.
The U.S. Board on Geographic Names.
The U.S. Board on Geographic Names.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Roll call vote. Diane Kennedy?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul?
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie?
Harry Thompson, aye.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye, and congratulations, Ruthie. Well done.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. Tracy, that's unanimous. And that concludes that. Thank you very much, Ms. Knapp, Ruthie, for being with us, and Timothy for your contribution on this presentation. So we do look forward to it. It's a nice little addition to the history of Cohasset. So much appreciated.
And Kevin, we have actually a form that's been submitted to us that we'll fill out and that you can just sign on behalf of the board then, as part of the signing that you'll be coming in to do anyway.
You'll need me to sign that?
Yeah, someone needs to sign off. I could probably sign off from the town as well. But
if you want me to sign it, just let me know and we'll arrange for it. I'll make myself available to sign this.
Oh, wait a second. It looks like we have the gentleman from the U.S. Board, James.
Hi, yes, my name is Matt O'Donnell. I work as the staff for the BGN. Thanks for taking the time to review this proposal. Hi, Ms. Knapp.
Hi.
Good to see you. We usually don't meet the proponents of names that come into us. Yeah, we will be able to vote on this at our meeting in June, and we'll know that the letter's coming from you. But here, I've seen that it's unanimous, so certainly we will have that on the docket. And the State Names Authority for Massachusetts already supports it with the spelling that you've suggested. So I'm pretty sure that based on the town support and the State Names Authority support, the BGN will approve it in June. I believe the meeting's on June
14th, maybe?
June 11th.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, June 11th.
Hey, sir, thank you very much for
You're welcome.
attending our meeting.
Thank you for having me, Chairman.
Thank you very much for those comments, and we appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Yep. Okay, that concludes that, and thank you, everybody. The next item on our agenda is annual town meeting review vote on warrant articles. The first one we have is Article 25, Alternative Energy Article. And I believe we have Tanya Bodell here, so will she be taking over the microphone on this, Chris?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We have final language that has been reviewed by Town Council. A draft version, and we'll explain what the changes are, have gone to the advisory committee, who unanimously supported it. The school committee also unanimously supported it. And we have talked to the director of Wilcox Commons, who is very interested in looking at solar for purposes of saving electricity prices and helping with resiliency and reliability. So we have sent a background presentation, but I think I will skip past that unless you have any questions and go straight to the language. So the original language that you're about to see was what was approved by the school committee and advisory committee. I think what you will see is the changes are tied to more clerical definition of the sites. This came to us from the assessor's office. And so we've incorporated it in with redlined, underlined additions. The first is to see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease roofs on the town-owned buildings and other portions of the building real estate for up to 20 years for purposes of a solar power electric generation facility. In addition, permission to grant a non-exclusive easement for reasonable access to do the installation and construction and operations, as well as permission to grant an easement for the duration of the contract, the lease, to National Grid or a third party. These three parts reflect the language that has come before the town with respect to the old landfill. I'm pleased to say it has now saved us more than $150,000 in the bit more than 2 years since it's been operating. So we're looking to get more savings before some of the tax incentives expire. In particular, the federal is expiring at the end of this year, and there's a new state program in place, which is also very helpful. So the three town sites that the Board of Selectmen would be authorized to lease if it saves money and makes sense would be the DPW transfer station. That's where our existing solar energy array is. And in the prior language that was identified as 3 parcels, it has now been consolidated into a single parcel per an identified plan that the assessor gave me that language. The second is the police and fire station. That's also identified. That one, apparently there's an issue, a debate about the actual address. Sequentially, it's 62 to 64, but it's recorded as 44 Elm Street. So we've put in both. to be clear. And then Wilcott Commons, which has a number, I don't know if it's a new number, but it's not the numbers that had originally been in the draft. And so that's for the town to authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease certain roofs and associated building real estate for purposes of solar energy arrays. I think Diane had a question.
There's two of these, so I'm sorry, there's two of these, so why don't we handle those separately? Is that appropriate? And then we can then vote on each one separately. So the first one was just reviewed with us. Also, for the public's benefit too, this is the language of it, but the background material was fairly extensively reviewed with us at the last meeting. So the board is familiar with this subject. But that's the first one, and Diane Kennedy has a comment or question.
Just clarification that the transfer station, we are talking the roof there as opposed to the land there.
Town council can discuss that. It says the building real estate in addition to the roofs that are on the buildings. Town council has indicated that that could extend to the land where the buildings are located. But defer to
that'll be up to selectmen at the time that they look at this. Is that correct?
Yes. So the Board of Selectmen, all this does is authorize the Board of Selectmen to decide whether or not the proposals should move ahead.
Okay. Diane, anything else? Okay. Any other questions on this first one? Okay. If I don't see any, I'll ask for a motion on it relative to this one.
You need to have a motion to put it on the warrant and then to recommend supporting it. And by the way, just to be clear, the planning board voted unanimously, I believe, Tanya, to support it, and the advisor, the other.
So the planning board, we talked to the capital planning committee. They did not feel the need to review it because there's no capital outlay involved. The school committee voted unanimously to approve it with the original language before the adjustments to the lot identification. The advisory committee also approved it unanimously last week.
Okay, anything else, Chris? Chris, okay. All right, I'll ask for a motion relative to this first one. The first motion would be to put it on the warrant, if that's what the motion would be. Carrie?
I make a motion that we place the lease.
Carrie.
Carrie was... Go ahead, Paul.
No, you can do it.
Go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead.
I move that we place Article 25, the alternative energy article, on the annual town meeting warrant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Do a roll call vote. Diane?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Okay.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. Tracy, that's unanimous. Now do we have a motion relative to recommending this to the town? Anybody want to make that motion, Paul?
Make a motion, we recommend to town meeting floor Article 25, lease of town property for sitting of solar power electrical generation facility.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Not seeing any. I'll ask for a roll call vote. Diane?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. Tracy, that's unanimous. Congratulations on that one, Tanya. Let's go ahead and try your second one.
Great, thank you.
Yes, if you can do the next article.
All right, and so this is the same concept, but it would look at the school properties, specifically the roofs and other portions of the school building for up to 20 years for the development and operation of a solar PV power electric generation facility. Again, it includes permission to grant an easement for purposes of the construction, installation, and operation and maintenance, as well as an easement to National Grid or a third party for the town's benefit for purposes of providing electricity and telecommunications to and from that property. And it identifies the 3 sites, again, things from the assessor in red compared to what had been provided to the school committee and the advisory committee. The school committee supports this. It's also important to note that in this case, the town would vote to authorize the Cohasset School Committee to lease, to decide whether or not it makes sense to move forward to lease the school building and other portions of the school building real estate under a lease for purposes of the solar array. So again, if we put this out to bid and the prices come back and they don't make sense, there's no obligation to move forward. Most certainly, the ideal situation would be we would obtain some market pricing information to make decisions about whether we should pursue town land or other options.
Thank you, Tanya. Any questions on this portion, on this presentation? And I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, if that's the case, then I'll ask for a motion relative to putting this on the warrant and noting that the advisory voted, what were the votes on this?
The advisory unanimously recommends this, and the school committee unanimously recommends this.
Okay. Is there a motion relative to putting this on the, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we recommend that we put Article 25, lease of school property siting for solar generating, power generating facility on the warrant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any comment, Diane?
Just a quick question. Is it Article 20? Are they both Article 25, like an A and a B?
No, I think that'd be two different articles. I wouldn't, this is the school article. So for the purposes of the vote, as long as you say school article, we'll make sure the numbering is correct. I think it's
Okay.
six.
Okay, so that said, any further discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote. Diane?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul?
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. It's on the warrant. Do I hear a motion relative to recommending this to town, to the, to recommending this to the annual town meeting?
I move that we recommend the article related to the lease of school property siting for a solar power generator
Recommended to who or what?
to the town meeting. Approval for the town meeting.
Approve.
Second.
Any second on that? Okay, any discussion? Okay, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Diane Kennedy?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert,
Paul
aye.
Schubert? Carrie
Carrie
Thompson?
Thompson, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye. Jack
Kevin
Creighton,
McCarthy?
aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. That's unanimous, Tracy. That's passed. Tanya, congratulations, but not so much congratulations, but thank you. You and your committee did an unbelievable, a lot of work in a very short period of time. So we're glad to support this, but I must say we do have to make a note of, there was an awful lot of hard work that you did very, very quickly. So at any rate, thank you
Well,
for this.
thank you.
We'll
Thank you
see
very
you
much.
next
Thank you for your vote and support. We're excited to move forward with this. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Tanya.
you.
Tanya, good work.
Okay. Yeah.
Well done, Tanya.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Article 24, Reciprocal Easements, 124 Elm Street. And I see suddenly, magically on our screen, Clark Brewer has arrived with his 19-month-old beard, and Laura Lind is there also. We covered this item last week, had a thorough discussion on it, and then it went back to planning, and I understand it's now back here as we had talked. So why don't I let Clark take over and begin the presentation of this article.
Thank you, Kevin. Just to summarize, the planning board took the language that town council put together to, and we had an hour-long, robust, intense conversation about what it was and what it meant and how it related to the application that is the public hearing process is going to be starting soon. So the board voted four in favor of and one abstention to recommend the warrant article as written, no changes, to the Board of Selectmen. And then we voted 5-0 or a unanimous vote to recommend the warrant article to the floor of town meeting. One piece of information that we got from a member of the team is that these easements have been in discussion for a year and a half or longer, and we also made it clear how we believe, the planning board, I believe that this negotiating the easements to protect the town's infrastructure and give the town access to their infrastructure, critical infrastructure, is important. Lauren, if I've missed anything, feel free to fill in the blanks, or are there any questions?
Lauren, would you care to comment?
Sure. I'll just say thank you, everybody, for having us back again. It's good to see everyone. Clark summarized most of the points. I'll also add that the planning board did vote to rescind. They had previously voted on different language. So they rescinded their vote on that previous language set, and the vote was for the article that was before you at the last meeting that Attorney Durance has prepared. So there's no changes there. And that again, at our last meeting, I referenced that there had been some kind of confusion. I discussed the concept of parallel tracks, if you will, about the application for this site and this easement topic. So we did, as Clark mentioned, have a robust discussion about that. And I think we've clarified a lot of, confusion in what is the result of some processes getting delayed due to the coronavirus pandemic and others starting as intended in the right time track. So with that, the board was supportive of this, and we'll take any questions that you may have.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this point here, are there any questions before? What I'd like to do is put up the actual article as it is. I know what a question is. By any other board, did advisory get a chance to do this? I know time was extremely short. Or if we got the vote from planning.
Yeah, advisory. I have an 8-0 vote recorded from advisory. They had
So they supported 8-0. Okay.
8-0. Yeah.
Okay. With that, I think Clark, you trying to say something? Go ahead.
There were two people that I believe abstained. Isn't that right, Lauren?
Right. There was 7-2 in my recollection. There was 2 members that abstained due to, short time receiving information.
The one person. I'm sorry. You're correct. One person was recused, so that was 8 voters. Hold on a second. It was. Hold on 1 second. I will be right back.
While we're waiting on that, was it Clark? Someone abstained on the planning, just for thoroughness, on the first part of it? What was that issue about? Anything you can enlighten our board on?
On the first vote, that was the one of the members that wanted to change their vote after having voted as a board, and she didn't really explain why she abstained on the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that it be included on the warrant. But we took the votes back to back, and then she turned around and voted in support of to recommend the warrant article to the floor of town meeting.
So unanimous to be recommended from the planning board.
I have it. I'm
Okay.
sorry. There were 1 recusal, 6 in favor, none opposed, and 2 abstained. That was the vote. It was 6-0-2.
Why were they abstaining?
Because they didn't feel they had sufficient time to review things. That was the conversation. So.
Okay. Okay. What I'd like to do is put up what the actual article is, so the selectmen can look at that, and And then once the selectmen get a chance to look it over, it's in our package. It's the same thing, I believe, Lauren, that we had last week. There's been no changes from what we sent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right, and it's in our package, but just for, the public's sake and for thoroughness, let's put it up there and then take a minute, look at it, and then come off of that and see if there's any further comments or questions from anybody on the board before we proceed to a vote. Here it is. It's the same thing as last week. You can push it up.
Yep, scroll down, thank you.
Good? Ready to take it?
Take it down, please. Okay, again, we saw it last week. It's in our package. So there it is. Any further discussion or questions of Clark or Lauren or any comments at all from the board? I see Jack Creighton. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very glad that we've got Attorney Dorenzis getting the language correct so we can get it done correctly. I think my only concern, and I think we ought to just get this passed, is that we're starting to run up legal counsel from outside firms, special counsels or whatever. We have a town counsel who is on retainer, so Attorney Dorenzis' work hasn't cost the town anything. And I just think the board ought to consider going forward that we should use our town counsel, because it doesn't cost us anything rather than running up additional expenses. But on the other hand, that's probably for another discussion. I'm glad to move this forward. I think let's get this project moving.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I'm
I'd like
not
to make a
seeing any.
motion to place Article 24 on the town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion's been made, and any discussion? Call for a roll call vote. Diane Kennedy?
Aye. Diane Kennedy, aye, sorry.
Paul Short, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Jack
Correct.
Creighton, aye. Yeah, Jack Creighton, aye.
Jack Creighton. Kevin McCarthy, aye. Tracy, that's unanimous. Clark and Lauren, thank you very much. And you've been good and patient with us and worked well with us to get this thing through. So thank you for your usual diligent work here. Much appreciated. And we can move on from here, okay?
But you just need to decide whether you need to vote whether to recommend it to town meeting as well. You just put it on the warrant.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend Article 24, the revised language for reciprocal easement voted by Planning Board on May 22, 2020.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? I thought we'd already put this on the warrant, but I guess not. But at any rate, made and seconded. No further discussion. We'll do a roll call vote. Diane?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Short, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. That's unanimous. I won't repeat myself again, Clark and Lauren. Thank you again very much.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much. Have a
appreciate
good night.
Yes, thank you. Okay, the next items on the agenda are any remaining articles, Chris, and also I think you'll want to go through, we need to go ahead and wrap up the warrant, but Paul Dorenzis has got his hand. Paul, go ahead. Paul? Oh, I can't hear Paul. Wait a second, Paul. I don't have anything to put. Can you?
Yeah, Paul, you're not showing as having a microphone. I have you in two different locations. Are you using a phone and a tablet?
Paul, say something. We can't hear you. Say something, please.
He just stopped out. He's now frozen solid.
I believe he has two Zoom open.
He does. I just moved I tried to unmute the other one, but it won't let me. So he's in control of it himself.
Okay, how about that?
There we go.
Yes.
That's good.
There we go.
All right, thank you. I wanted to give you a report on the legislature. General Court has now, both the House and the Senate have passed a bill to reduce quorums for your town meeting. They're just different versions and different language. So they're going to have to go to conference committee to sort it all out. But this was a bill of interest to you because you have a fairly substantial quorum requirement for your town meeting. This will allow you to reduce that to a number of 10% of that, or some number between that. So if you go from 100 to any number down to 10.
Okay, are there implications if we do that?
Yes.
Well, we maybe ought to let the board know what that is too. What are the implications if we were to reduce the quorum?
If you reduce the quorum, you can only vote on articles that are necessary to meet a federal deadline, so you can do your FEMA article and the budget.
But that's it, right? Okay, so this is what I'm going to suggest is this isn't actually law yet. Is that right, Paul?
No, because there's two different versions.
I understand. So I'm suggesting to the board that, you know, we may have this authority. It may become law, but we'll relook at this on June 9th and, you know, decide whether or not we want to do anything relative to this if it is a law. Is that makes sense? I hear a couple of nods. I think that's the way to handle this. Okay. So thank you for that, Paul. And then we'll revisit this on June 9th to see if we want to do that. But there are implications to doing that reduction, and we'd have to have a more thorough discussion before we did that. But thank you for pointing that out. Did you want to point anything else out before Chris continues with the warrant? Paul? Okay, Chris Senior?
So I think we're set with the warrant. The only one that I don't remember 100% on is the citizens petition. We already voted Paul's alternative article on the warrant and recommended it unanimously. So it would be Article, I believe it's 27 now. Would just be to recommend indefinite postponement of Article 27, which is the citizens petition, release of an easement. That's the Two Smith Place. Because there's already an article, it's already been approved earlier in the warrant, or recommended for approval. But I was, just so it's clear, the advisory voted to recommend indefinite postponement as well last week.
You need to vote on
So
that?
the idea is that is there in two different places. We'll leave it in the first place. This is just sort of an administrative cleanup type.
Yeah. This is so the citizens petition was filed. It's on the warrant. But there's another article that's been created that council drafted. It's on the warrant. Everyone recommends it. And I believe, I'm fairly certain that Council Henderson, who's the attorney for the proponent.
But my question is, do we have the power to remove a citizen's?
No. You're not removing it. All the articles have recommendations for votes. So all that you'd be doing is recommending that this article be indefinitely postponed. That's all. You're not removing it from the warrant. But every article has a recommendation. Usually vote to recommend approval or not. In this case,
right,
definite postponement of the citizens petition. You don't have to do this, but it just makes the advisory did vote to recommend indefinite postponement last week. So
I'm willing to make a motion, Kevin, if you want to
go ahead.
So I move that we recommend a town meeting indefinite postponement of Article 27.
Second.
No second. Any further discussion on this? Not hearing any further discussion, we'll go for a vote. Diane, roll call.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack,
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. That's unanimous, Tracy. Okay,
And the-
continue.
And so you need to make two more changes to the warrant. You need to change, and I'm going to ask Tracy to join in because she can correct me if I'm misstating anything, because she's been updating this. You need to change the time to 6 p.m. As we finalize the warrant, and the location, because it was originally 7. You're going to move, if you're going to move it up till 6, and then the location, which was the gymnasium at the middle high school, will now be the South Shore Music Circus, 130 Sawyer Street. That'll be the new location of town meeting. We are, by the way, the meeting located, the site work last week was excellent. There was 20 plus people, including the moderator and the clerk and a host of other folks. We had another discussion earlier today. There's another discussion later in the week. We're getting a lot of feedback on the process of the meeting. The technical aspects have come together, I think, rather well. So we're very optimistic that this will come together smoothly. I was on a call earlier today with South Shore managers, and people are just not sure what to do. There's at least one that's pushing it off until after July 1. Hull is going to be experimenting with it on the football field on Monday the 1st. And Citra's going to see what happens with other people's town meetings. So we are actually kind of taking the lead on this, which is good and a little scary at the same time. But it seems like everything's coming together well. As Paul pointed out, I think last week, some other communities have pulled off these kinds of meetings, I think more in the West. So we've been the first kind of Eastern community in Massachusetts to make this work. But we're optimistic. The planning is going very well. We're going to obviously have to do a lot of education of folks as they come in, and also in advance of how to come to the meeting and how to participate. Though it looks like that, we're and again, I'm sure there'll be some bugs, right? I don't mean literal bugs. I mean like technological bugs. There may be literal bugs too, but we've also arranged spraying from Plymouth County Mosquito Control. So that should hopefully help with that. So, we're coming along okay.
Why don't we put that on also the procedures for the, to discuss this for the public, as benefit to on June 9th. Tracy, if you could put that on the first draft of the agenda, and Chris and I'll figure where to put it in. But let's discuss procedures for the town meeting. Any further discussion? I think what's that we need to do initially is to get a motion. I think if it can be done in one motion, Chris and Paul, to change the location, to the music circus and the time to 6 p.m. Someone can do that in one motion. That would be quite acrobatic verbally. Diane, you go ahead.
Yeah, I'll move it. I move that we change the time for annual town meeting to 6 p.m. Tuesday, June 16th, 2020, and the location to the South Shore Music Circus, 130 Sawyer Street. Is that the right number?
Yep, that's it.
Yep, South Shore Music Circus parking lot, 130 Sawyer Street.
Second.
Okay, been made. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
This motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? Call for roll call. Diane?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Paul? Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack?
Sorry, Jack Creighton, aye.
Okay, then you mute your camera. Then now you can mute your camera, Jack, when you're not talking. That's passed unanimously, Tracy.
Kevin, you got to vote.
Did I do something? Yeah. Did you say I got the vote? Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Did you vote? Did you vote? I don't think we heard your
Kevin
vote.
McCarthy, aye.
Okay.
Tracy, that's unanimous. I thought that was encompassed in my. Go ahead. That's unanimous, Tracy.
Okay, so what you need to do now is officially vote to publish the warrant and order the constable to post as required. So.
Is the constable here, or will you?
No, it's Maria Plan. No, wait. You directing us is sufficient. So.
I know, just kidding you. Okay, so we need a motion to close the warrant and publish it.
Correct.
So who would like to make that? We're reluctant to do so, folks?
I'll do it.
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's up your alley. I was waiting for you to do it.
I make a motion, we close the town meeting warrant for June 16, 2020, to have it published to the town and posted to the constable according to state law.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Call for roll call vote. Diane?
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Short, aye.
Carrie?
Carrie Thompson, I.
Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. Tracy, that's unanimous. And after many, many months of work, congratulations, Chris, and your entire staff, all the people who have appeared to us, all the committees that have worked so hard, and all the boards. I mean, thank you, thank you, thank you. We've just closed the warrant and published it, and we're able to do that after many months of a lot of work. So it's a great town accomplishment, and I think the town should be very proud every year when we're able to do this. So let's look forward to another excellent town meeting. But thank you, everybody, for what you've done on this warrant. Okay, that takes care of that item. We're now going to move to the next subject, which is a town manager update to include a regional sewer update. Chris?
All right, thank you. Again, thank you for all the work on the warrant. And the next big lift will be to make sure we get as smooth a town meeting as possible and everyone attending that we can. The town's been in a 3-year study with Holland Situate about regional sewer. And there's been lots of discussion and analysis in that time period. The focus that has, where the project has now kind of focused on a plan that will allow Situate to provide sewer service in the areas around the Gulf River. That's North Situate in the area on the north side of the Gulf, or I should say the east side of the Gulf River, and connecting via Cohasset into the Hull plant. A connection using existing pipes looked very promising earlier this year. We had to do some diversion. It looked like things might work. Unfortunately, this is new information that's developed that's kind of requiring a fresh look at the options for that kind of connection. That was good that we learned what we learned, and there's some more analysis going to have to be done. A lot of time and effort's been expended on the project, and the master plan and the harbor plan both include consideration of the expansion of sewer, the sewer network for environmental reasons, for affordable housing reasons, for targeted economic development reasons. And the challenge now is that the last time we had a major public discussion, this was a little more than a year ago. And I'm recommending that the board take the lead in having another big community conversation, obviously including all the big players, the Sewer Commission, the Master Plan Implementation Committee, Affordable Housing Trust, citizens at large, obviously all of you folks taking the lead. And probably would do this sometime this summer. You know, we have to get town meeting done and get a few other big pieces done. But I think it's time, my recommendation to you folks is that you direct that a big public conversation happen so we can talk about where we are and where we want to go and how this should come together. Because it's really, you know, it's a good conversation, but it's a very important public conversation. It's not about one board, it's really about the town's direction. And as I mentioned, you know, the master plan has looked at, has raised these issues. The harbor plan has raised these issues for a variety of reasons. This board has talked about it. The Sewer Commission has obviously been very deep in this conversation. But it's bigger than any one board. And as the selectmen, as the chief policymakers, really should kind of take the lead, I think, and pull this conversation.
So, question, I answered a couple of questions. One, what are the dimensions of what you're talking about? You're talking about, you know, the sewering relative to Main Street, Situate, that harbor area. Is that what the issue is? Is that the issue? And
Yes.
then my other question is, you indicated new information, you know, has come aboard. Can you enlighten the board as to what that's about?
Sure. So the focus has really gone as the primary focus. The first phase of any of this would be a South Main Street connection to Situate. South Main Street is not currently sewered, and that obviously abuts the Gulf River, and it's an area of environmental concern. And that would allow a connection into North Situate, and then from North Situate on into the area. And again, I forget the area they call that, you know, the area between the Glades and along the Border Street, area of Situate. And that would be the simplest potential answer. A phase 2 conversation, which is going to take longer to have because there's more studies that have to be done, would be adding sewer along 3A. But again, that's the reason that's phase 2 is because there's bigger conversations about zoning and the future of the town and all that have to take place before that's ripe for really anything more than early discussions. So the South Main Street corridor is the primary discussion. That's the Sewer Commission's primary focus has been South Main. And from Situate's perspective, that's their primary focus too, because of the North Situate area. And again, the area around wrapping around towards Border Street. To answer your second question, so there was when the diversions were first going on, the extended diversions as a result of the sewer plant's challenges. And by the way, I think we've publicly mentioned this, but the first side of the sewer plant's new systems have been successfully installed and they're working great. So we're very excited about that. There was a lot of touch and go. The coronavirus affected lots of things, including transportation internationally, but it all came in and it's been installed. And we're awaiting now the second phase. So that will hopefully begin later this spring. So the plant is working smoothly, but when it was not working quite as smoothly, there was more diversion done. And that diversion initially made it look like the system could pivot so that some sewage could be sent onto Hull, covering about half the town, which would then allow sewage from from Situate to come in and kind of backfill. So there'd be kind of a swap, kind of the way electricity works. You know, electricity one place and moves on. You know, in this case, it will allow for like if Situate sent us 10,000 gallons, 10,000 gallons would flow from North Cohasset into Hull, and then Situate would pay Hull. So it was looking very promising. That would be a comparatively inexpensive upgrade because much of the pipes are already in place. Unfortunately, several weeks back during part of this diversion, part of the system broke in Cohasset. And some investigation found that the pipes, there were some installation concerns that happened 20 years ago, and we would never have known it. The pipes were rated for a much higher level of pressure than normally they operated at very low pressure. The pressure was raised, but it was, I think, 1/3 of what the rated capacity was supposed to be. The pipe still separated. So Director of Public Works, Brian Joyce, has some concerns, and I think there has to be more analysis done of our system before it can determine whether or not it's even possible from an engineering perspective to use the existing system. So there's some real engineering concerns. That doesn't mean that a connection via Cohasset to Hull is not possible. It just means it may require other options than connecting to existing pipes. And that's a study that's kind of analysis that's kind of have to take place before we can go any further. There are other issues too, and again, without going into great depth on them, there are other operational issues that would still have to be worked out in terms of a 3-town agreement. But the engineering concerns are the ones that are really a challenge, because you can negotiate operating terms. You can't negotiate pipes in the ground. You got to put those in and fix them if there's a problem. So that has to be looked at in more depth. But that's the concern, Kevin, about the why there has to be more analysis done now of that option.
I have a citizen question, but is there anybody from the Board of Selectmen who want to make a comment or question first? Jack Creighton.
Yeah, Chris, you're talking about this would also allow expansion of sewer around Border Street. Is that the Border Street past, you mean towards Atlantica and the Lobster Pound? Is it?
Yeah, on the Cohasset side, Jack, there actually is, it's already sewered. So the sewer runs all the way, actually just a little bit past this. I believe there's 2 customers in Situate that actually tie into our system on Border Street. But beyond that, there's no sewer. So on the Situate side, there's nothing. That's all septic. And that's the real environmental concern, is that whole area has been leaching into the Gulf River. And the concerns over nitrogen flows in the Cohasset Harbor are really, I think everyone, all that I've heard from folks who know far better than I say that the issues are really coming out of the Gulf River from unsewered areas, which are predominantly in Situate, though again, South Main Street also abuts it, and that's not sewered.
Yeah, I was just I'm looking at a map and I'm just trying to figure out exactly, are we adding extra sewerage area, et cetera, and so on. Just a clarification, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Diane?
No, I just noticed that one of the sewer commissioners is on the line. I don't know if we want to, if he's here to speak on any matter before we take public comment, or?
That would be fine. I noticed that that was also a sewer commissioner online. If you care to come forward and identify yourself, Chris, can you see who that is?
I see. Bill is there, and he should be, there he
Yeah,
is.
there it is.
He's at a tropical
There's,
island somewhere.
Yeah, there's John, yes, there's Bill McGowan, and then there's John Beck, and we also have a citizen's question that we'll be getting to. But we have first, Bill, do you want to speak first, or John can speak? Doesn't?
Yeah, no, I was asked, by Chris to come on this and be available for questions and answers. I would say that, I'm going to speak for myself, not for the board. I am still in favor of a regional sewer, maybe not in the guise that were proposed by the Situate, Hull, Cohasset sort of group. I think that there are a lot of factors that I can share with you either tonight or at another point where I have concerns. I have concerns over the fact that if we start something with Hull and Cohasset, with Situate, we're going to be in the middle of the Oreo sandwich here without really too much leverage. They will both have leverage. Once we do this system, if we do it, we can't shut it off. We don't have a proverbial valve that we can shut off if things don't work. Secondarily to that, it's just how we're going to do this. And a lot of it comes from the letters that were sent from the town managers of both Situate and Hull. We had in our last regional meeting, certainly a definition of what we wanted to talk about, which was some of the major rocks that we wanted to look at as to how Cohasset would be dealt with by Situate and Hull. Where are we going to sewer? It has been my personal sort of my push since I started being a commissioner with the sewer board about 10 years ago, to sewer the Gulf. And that doesn't mean half of it. So what Situate is telling us is they want to sewer basically South Main Street to somewhere in the middle of the North Situate area, and that's it. Well, no, we have to go all the way around because the Blakely Farm will be developed by somebody at some point in time. If we don't sewer that, it's going to pollute the Gulf, which comes into our harbor, which ends up being the toilet of the area. So I want that cleaned up personally. We have sent a list, and we're going to put a letter to both the Hull and the Situate town managers as to what we want. I mean, we have to be put into a position of equal, if not a higher strength. We do not want to be subordinate to either Situate or Hull in the negotiations, whichever take on. We want to look at the fact that we might want to have a sewer outflow out of the town of Cohasset. We want to look at the fact that maybe we don't want to deal with Hull. Hull is going to charge us a tremendous amount to do this, and they will charge Situate to do the same. They don't want to cut us any deals. They don't have any kind of, they want us to pay for their capital expenditures. It's clear to us. So there's a lot of things that we want to negotiate. There's a lot of things that we want to take a step forward. We certainly want to talk to people, but there are just a lot of issues that we want to take care of. We want to make sure that the town of Cohasset is protected. And we want to start with Situate because they are the big rock in this thing. We're bigger, but they are a big rock. And I think we want to discuss with Situate how we want to approach this plan and whether or not we even need help.
Kevin, you're on mute.
I assume that's all you're making your comment right now, Bill. To be orderly, are there any questions from the Board of Selectmen relative to what Bill McGowan is is discussing with us. Diane Kennedy.
I just want to add that, and I'm glad that Chris brought it up under town manager, because it clearly is an agenda item that I think needs to be accelerated before the board. Ultimately, expansion under most situations is ultimately a town meeting action. So I think the sooner we can get like up to speed with the community and the conversation and understand what levers we've got and what levers the other towns have, and so we can make a decision, the better. So I say we get this, start having this conversation as soon as possible. And I recognize town meetings in 3 weeks, so probably soon after that.
Just to tag on to that, and I'll get to you a second, John. When that discussion's had, I think it's really important. I don't know much about all this whole thing, but we've discussed this several times, and I know it's a very big project, but that we should determine clearly as a town what our objectives are, what our values are, what our priorities are for the community before, we get too far into the minutiae of negotiations or alternatives and all those things, which are critical. But it's very important when we having this discussion as a board or as a town that we achieve within Cohasset a consensus of what our values and what our objectives are relative to sewering, and get really set on that. And I think that framework, I would really like to see it done that way so that we don't get lost in the weeds and before something, gets done. John Beck.
Thank you. I fully endorse all the comments you just made, as well as Chris's suggestion earlier in his comments that we have public discussion and public meetings about the whole area. I think your comments were dead on, Mr. Chairman. We need to have that discussion. Everybody needs to understand the strategic implications of what we're talking about. It's not just this most recent suggestion, but it's the longer term strategic issues that are very important to this town. Any regional solution, for example, would involve giving up local control. It would be subject to a regional commission of some sort that would decide your future, and you would have no more local control. It would be subject to that regional body. So that's just part of the issue that needs to be discussed and understood by everybody before we move forward with even the small step that was recently recommended. Thank you.
John, anything else? Any comments relative to John? I see Chris Senior, yes?
Yeah, I just, and by the way, thank you, John. I just want to clarify that the scenario John raised is just one management scenario. The quad town or the 4-town regional 911 system does not operate that way. So it's done with the 4 managers serving as the board of directors. Everyone has their own fire department, police department, and we collaborate on this. So while there are such things as regional sewer boards with like regional school districts, they don't have to be established that way. You can have intermunicipal agreements that share. So again, that's getting deep into the weeds, but I just want to clarify that there are other ways of setting something up, which again, I think is a really underscored point as to why the community has to have this conversation before we get deeper into this.
Thank you, Chris. Jack Creighton. Jack, 1 second. You there, Jack? Wait a second, let me get. I can't see you're on mute.
All right. Are we all set?
Yes, Jack.
Yeah. Bill and John, thank you very much. Those are insightful, and I couldn't agree more. I also like the idea of the potential of loss of local control and being caught kind of as a vice between Situate's needs and Hull's needs, and I think we potentially could be the loser. I think it's a very, very major long-term issue. I think we need to have a community-wide discussion on this. And I just one point, scheduling. I think that even though I'd like to move forward on scheduling, we should be aware that a lot of people won't be engaged during the summer, and this is a crucial issue. And by the way, Bill and John, thank you very much. Those are very well thought out, insightful comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other comments from the Carrie Thompson?
Yeah, thank you for all these comments. I think just as we're moving on, we need to balance how this can possibly help or hurt Cohasset, especially possibly help or hurt us with infrastructure, while also recognizing the fact that I do think two of our neighboring community towns really do need our help and are asking for our help. And I'm not saying that's the only reason we should do something, but I do think that being able to be a good community at times and realizing that we're all in this together on the South Shore is also a powerful argument. So I just think we need to balance that as we're moving on with the debate. It shouldn't just be about how it's going to help Cohasset, but I do think that that part is important. But again, Situate and Hull are really trying to work with us. So I do think the discussion at least needs to continue.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Any other commentary from the selectmen? We have a public question. This is from Katie Dugan and BlackRock. And the question is, who is advocating for further study of alternative 5.1? Question mark. Hull and Situate have sent letters to Woodward and Curran in support of alternative 5 in March 2020. Anybody want to address that question?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, John.
In the beginning of most negotiations, typically you have a framework as to what you want to talk about. And the letters that we got from both the town of Situate and the town of Hull were somewhat bland. And they basically said, yeah, we support it. What do they support? When we had talked to them in the last meeting, we were talking about sewering the Gulf, which meant to us, and I don't want to get into the weeds, but meaning we're going to sewer the entire Gulf, not just partially. And there are a lot of things that we want to see, basically to protect our rights, to protect the sewer ratepayers of Cohasset, and a lot of other things. We want to put together a list of things that the board will then write a letter to both the town manager of Situate and the town manager of Hull to rebut. But the letter that came to us said, yeah, they're open to negotiations, but Hull certainly is not, and Hull and Situate probably is. That's my answer.
Thank you, Bill. Any more commentary from the board? And I see no more public questions. Okay, Chris, anything more on this subject you need from us?
I'm gathering the consensus from all of you is that it's the consensus, I should say, from all of you that I've clearly gotten is that we need to have a public conversation. We need to figure out how to schedule it. And it's probably not just one. I think Jack raised a good point about the summer. This is going to be a little different summer. I don't know if people want to talk about sewers if they can't go on vacation necessarily, but I think it's going to probably require more than one public meeting. So we'll talk about how to tee it up in a good way.
And I would think also too, the board or the town might want to think about other means of engaging the public, social media, mailings, all the other skills that we've developed. Maybe Zoom meetings that are narrowed and focused, whatever. But I think we can now have learned to be able to think outside the box in terms of communicating and doing things that would enable us to move forward on this kind of discussion. But that's just a thought. Okay. If that's it, Chris, would you go to your next agenda?
And so the other thing I want to raise, which is just part of my general update, that next Tuesday we're going to continue an emergency. This like our meeting next Tuesday, we're going to do an emergency management update anyway, and we're going to do it live on 143 and on Facebook and on Zoom, and we're going to try to moderate questions from the public. So, any of you want to participate, can most certainly do it. If you want to participate as a group, you probably should post a meeting or let us know to post a meeting so you can at least deliberate, because it's not going to be any voting. But we thought it would be a good idea. We've talked about it, so we're going to do that next Tuesday in the slot that a selectmen's meeting is normally held, or I should say regularly, since you've met every week this month. And because these I think have been well received, and I think it's a great communications vehicle for the town. So try it. a little differently, and we're going to try the Facebook Live, and we're going to see if we can't moderate some questions and get people to interact. So we'll see.
This is we're going right into full mode CNN style.
Yeah, if I grab my more grabby Wolf Blitzer.
You're looking like Wolf Blitzer more every day. Okay, board. Do we want to post this as a meeting that we would all be attending, or do we want to leave it at Chris's discretion? This is to do a town update. So any thoughts on that?
I would say err on the side of posting, just in case 3 of us show up or more. We're also meeting on Wednesday, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Wednesday's a real meeting. The other reason we post it is not so that you do anything, it's just in case more than 2 of you are there and want to talk, it just covers you. Because it'll be posted as a deliberation only, no decisions or something. But if you want me to do that.
So yeah, why don't you do that and post that meeting appropriately just for that subject. Okay, so we will post it. Jack Creighton, you have a comment?
My only comment was I think we should post it, but I think we ought to make it an opportunity for the citizens to speak and not for us to speak. Let's let the people speak. I'm hearing lots of stuff, and I think we need to open up the dialogue.
Sounds good. And I think that is what one of Chris's intentions
Absolutely.
are. He plans to do this where Facebook is monitored at the same time, and then when questions will come in, they'll go to whoever's looking at the Facebook to handle those. So he's going to organize this, and it is going to be unique that way. And yeah, I agree with you, Jack. This could be kind of fun. Okay, so that takes care of that. Anything else?
That's unless anyone has any questions, that's all my update for tonight.
Very good. Okay, selectmen comments, Diane?
Just a couple things. First of all, congratulations to Phil Mahoney and our Veteran Service Officer and the Legion and everybody who participated in the Memorial Day. I think all of us probably had some pain yesterday, a little sadness in not having what really is always a wonderful day in Cohasset. I think we did the next best thing. So the Memorial Day program and that video is just pretty impressive. So just kudos on that. I also wanted to, I know we're going to be talking about committees at an upcoming meeting. I want to really put on all of our radar, and I brought it up a couple weeks ago, trying to constitute an economic development committee or some business liaison committee, because I think, especially as we get further into the summer and things become clearer in one sense and maybe less clear in others with respect to reopening businesses, it's going to be important for us to have a dialogue with our businesses and have them feel like they're part of what we do. You know, a lot of them reach out. I think I said this before. One of the local businesses called me and said, "Oh, I noticed you have a stabilization fund with some cash in it. Is there any way you can repurpose it to us?" Because they're struggling and they don't understand how municipal government works. And I just think it's going to be really important for us to all work as closely as we can with all of the different entities in town. So, you know, I do hope we can have that conversation about whatever kind of a committee might work best for us. And lastly, a couple weeks ago, I forgot to bring up that I sat through the annual State of the Harbor that CSCR does, and it was really great. And the students all did PowerPoint presentations, and it's pretty exciting that they're still moving along and doing what they do best, which is educating kids on environmental and harbor issues. So that's all from me. Stay well, everybody.
Thank you. I think on that economic development, what we should do, and we've sort of discussed this before, is that committee is established by bylaw and so forth. But like we had done with other committees, I think we need to put on the agenda a review of the bylaw and whatever else we might want to indicate as some kind of a charter, if we can have any input into that. And then with that set, then go ahead and call for members of it. Because Chris, why don't we make a note to put that on a fairly soon agenda, you know. But it should start with a discussion of the chat, you know, the bylaw, the charter, so we know the framework of what we're doing, and then promote that, and that'll draw people in, be attracted to that. I've heard people want us to get that committee going again.
Yeah,
Diane?
and you know, and to be fair, you know, Economic Development Committee, because it is defined already. It may not be the entity that we want today to deal with kind of the reopening and just the general communications among the community and the businesses. But certainly long term, it is something you know, that committee might be Economic Development Committee might not fit the role right now, but we need to have that discussion. So thank you.
Okay. Paul?
So two quick things on harping on Diane's comments. See if you can do your best to help out the local businesses as they start to open up. It's going to be a very difficult time for them, and it has been. So try to stay local, you know, support them as best you can. A lot of these local people live in town, they have local businesses, and just, you know, try to support them. The other thing is, for any of the parents out there that have kids, they need to get their vaccinations up to date, because I'm sure they've been pushing them back. I know I mentioned this before, but World Health Organization, CDC, have been concerned about lack of immunization for the young kids in America that are going to get pushed back. So the measles, mumps, rubella, all of those need to get updated. Those are my two. That's it.
Thank you. Carrie?
Yes, I second both the comments of Diane and Paul. Excellent. Also, there still is time to register to vote. If you have not registered to vote yet in town, you can do that before both our town meeting and our town election. And you still can also request your early voting ballots if you want. And you can go to our town website or votecohasset.org to fill those out and sign them and send them to our town clerk.
Thank you, Carrie. Jack?
You know, I want to point something out. As we go through the town meeting, and people at home, you may have noticed we're referring to, like, the sewer commission just did a good presentation, the planning board, all the commissions. And I think we really should recognize the hard work that they've been doing quietly behind the scenes to really figure out where we want our town, to gather knowledge, to put informed minds so we have good public policies. This isn't glamorous, but we all owe a great debt of gratitude to each and every one of them for the good work that they're doing. And they're one of the reasons why Cohasset is such a special town is their work. They truly are unsung heroes, and I just want to salute them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just and I have to comment or reinforce about the Memorial Day weekend, when this community really came together in a remarkable way and put together a virtual Memorial Day presentation, which was videoed in different parts and in different days. And it was a pretty unique effort. But I watched these things online, and the huge amount of people posting pictures and talking about the video that's been put up there and the presentations. I mean, thousands of people in this town really participated a lot in the Memorial Day festivities that were put together virtually, and they participated in it virtually. Yeah, super kudos to Phil Mahoney, the Sons of the American Legion, and Chris Senior, who actually had a vision very early on to let's go ahead and do this, and it came off really, really well, and I think the town should be very proud of that. So on the video that was mentioned that recapped the whole, I really can't help but highlight, if you watch it, it's online, but the first 10-15 minutes is a complete history that the History Society and Phil overlaying and commentary with video and shots, the whole history of our military involvement and commitment that this town has had, going back to the Revolutionary War. It went through every single, the Spanish-American War, the War of 1812, the Korean War, Vietnam, World War II, World War I, the whole thing, and gave the history of our participation in it. It's an incredible 15 minutes, and that's worth it. to watch that alone, and our historical society participated in that. So enough on that, but it really was quite remarkable. There's a lot of stuff online about it. I'm sure you'll see it in the Mariner and from Chris's weekly updates and so forth. So, okay. If there's nothing else, then what I'll do is ask for minutes of the 5/12/2020. Is there a motion to approve those?
I move that we approve the minutes from 5/12/2020.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie,
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. Those are approved unanimously. Tracy, I don't have any topics that are not reasonably anticipated within the last.
Before you adjourn, can I just one more time remind all of you, I need all 5 of you to sign 2 documents, the warrant and that letter in support of the grant. So we could do one of 2 things. You can come into the lobby. There'll be it'll be on a clipboard. Bring your own pen. You can sign it, leave it, and we'll take care of it. If we need an alternative arrangement, call Tracy. We'll try to figure something out. And then Kevin, there'll be a 3rd thing for you to sign, which is that support for the Runner Rock, and that'll be in there too. And again, if any of you have a challenge, you need to find an alternative method, just call us and we'll figure out a better way to make it work.
Okay, thank you for bringing up, Chris. That is important. We all have to have that warrant signed. I think probably tomorrow if we can, or no late, probably tomorrow. So
That'd be great.
it might be helpful if you put out, or Tracy put out just a brief email to all of us saying, please come to town hall and that what hours we can be there, exactly where that board is. I really think everybody should get that signed tomorrow, okay? But I think if you send an email first thing in the morning, that'll remind us all to do it, okay?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any topics within the last 48 hours. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye. And with that, I hereby call this meeting of May 23rd, 26, 2020. We are now adjourned. Bye.
All right.
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Take care.
Very
Take
good.
care.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night. Good ending, Kev.